everybody, and welcome to the Digital to Dice podcast. I am Dave.
I'm Ron.
And Ron, it's episode 42. What do we got? Is it Ricky Bell from the Buccaneers? Is that what we can do here?
No, for the Buccaneers, or it's The Answer to the Universe. You ever read that book?
No.
Now I can't remember the name of it. Never mind. But the answer is always 42, and someone will pick it up. So it could be Ricky Bell.
So it's a hot day in May. 2 weeks ago we had snow, and now we have sweltering weather. Holy cow, I walked the dog today, and I was just drenched from just walking the dog. So,
yeah, I've got the fan running and the air conditioner running, and it's a balmy 77 in here. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, by the way.
Yeah, I turned on the heat a few weeks ago. It got so cold at night, and now I do. We have the AC on as well. It's unbelievable. It's like, oh my gosh.
Did you enjoy that 5 seconds of spring?
Oh, I missed it. I was in the bathroom. I missed it. So.
Oh, well, sometimes you need to take those pills to help shrink the size of certain things. But
something, my head, baby.
The nice thing is that it's greened up so much out here. It is very pretty.
The lawn looks good. I just cut the grass today. It looks great out there. And I got my dog, right? When I cut the grass, I got the tractor for out back, and he lays over, lays on the ground right in front of me as I'm driving the tractor. And it's like, dummy, I'm going to run you over. And I get right up to him. Of course, I'm not going to run him over. And then he finally moves, but he does it on purpose. It's almost like it's a game of chicken. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's just like, come on, get out of the way, man.
That dog is in such good shape right now.
He is. He's done a lot of walks. But speaking of dogs, sadly, though, if you follow it all, our other dog passed away on Sunday. He was having seizures. We thought was seizures, and he had a big one on Sunday night. In fact, I was just sitting down at the table. She went to bed. I was just sitting down at the table to play a game, and before I even had my first roll, I heard him, and I looked. He was spinning around in the hallway, and he was in a bad way. And 2 hours later, he hadn't snapped out of it, and we brought him down to the emergency room. Of course, it's a holiday weekend on a Sunday, so we only had one place to go, and they were just like, he hasn't changed, and I don't think he's going to. And if he does, he might have some long-standing damage. So there was nothing we could do. I mean, we couldn't take him home like that. We couldn't care for him like that. And we didn't know what kind of shape he was going to be in if he come out of it. So at 15, 16 years old, we figured it was his time if he was that sick. So
poor thing.
Yeah, it's still kind of sad. He was more attached to the wife than me.
Right.
And we got him when he was about 10. So he was an older dog when he got him, and he was a breeding dog, so he wasn't very socialized, and he didn't do well with people or anything like that.
It wasn't just a breeding dog. He was locked up as a breeding dog. It was his own, that's a rescue dog, and you two gave him 5 great years. Yeah,
we gave him the run of the house and the big yard, and we took him on walks, and we took him every place on holidays with us, but he never quite came around. You know what I mean? He was always a little standoffish. He never bit you, and he never was a bad dog by any means. But he wasn't a dog you could pick up and hold. He just would he'd be like, oh, he was just so petrified of being held, but we let him do what he did for 5 years or so, whatever it is, and we try to give him some good times at the end of his life.
He did.
And that's how you have to look at it. But yeah, she's still pretty devastated about it. So it was a few years ago we had 3 dogs, and now we have 1. So it's been kind of a sad ride for us.
Yeah.
But anyway, so today I guess Ron, we did Ron's gaming journey a few episodes ago, and Ron says, "Why don't we do Dave's gaming journey?" So Ron's going to put on the reporter's hat, that little fedora that he likes to wear from time to time.
I've got a couple fedoras. I like fedoras.
I bet you do. And
You're not surprised at that at all, are you?
No, I'm not. I could picture that. I could picture one of those guys in the reporter's booth with the the pen in the ear and the notepad and the fedora on. I could picture that. I do.
Mr. Gardner, did you take that bribe from that co-ed or no?
We're here to talk about baseball, and I want to talk about baseball. It's 90% mental, and the other half is physical. So I'm here to talk about baseball today.
Yes, but did you make sure that you had to body paint her orange or no?
Well, when it comes to baseball, it's 90% mental, 50% physical. So that's all I'm going to say. But
it's on to Cincinnati, right?
We're on to wherever we'll go. We're on to Tampa Bay.
It's on to Tampa Bay. There you go.
So Ron's going to ask me some questions. We'll talk a little bit about that. Almost like a little fireside chat, I guess you could call it here, as we like to do, as we take a break from some of the main topics. But before we do that, Well, let's get into.
No, by the way, before you do that, you forgot to give the dice line number.
Oh, I forgot to do that. You know, sometimes I do it at the end, but I should do it at the beginning all the time. Right. Yeah, our website, digitaltodice.com. That's where we park our podcast over on Spreaker. You can listen right over there on Spreaker or any of your favorite podcast apps, iTunes, iHeartRadio, the whole bit. Digitaltodice.com is the website. 978-751-DICE, 978-751-3423. Is how you can find us on text if you want to send us a text. And on Facebook, holy cow, the Facebook group is growing.
286?
Jeebus, yeah.
Did I read that right? Did I? Because I approved a couple last night, and you've approved a couple overnight.
It's been a couple of days signing up. Yeah, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. We talk about games. We post our projects. We share, just any kind of things with games. If you got a question on a game, we try to answer it the whole bit. We have a couple of, have a handful of game designers in that group that post news about their game and the whole bit, and a couple of people answer questions. Marco with regular season baseball, Roberto Schiavini there with his games. Mike Seelock has answered a couple of questions on his games too.
Clay Dreslow's actually in there too.
Oh, fantastic!
From the Sports Mogul series.
Oh, nice.
So
nice, yeah. So we have some people in there that can really help us out with some of our game playing and the whole bit. So Digital to Dice is the website.com is the website, and our Facebook group. Just search Digital to Dice on Facebook in the groups. You should find it. And so anyway, so I guess we could probably mosey along to what we're playing, right?
Yes. And Becky, can I get that new tattoo you have as well?
How long is she going to be in? Is it a month?
I didn't look to see how long she's in there for. At least a few months.
I don't think it's more of a token arrest than anything else.
I don't understand why she had to go to. We're talking about Lori Loughlin and someone else. Why she had to go to jail for that? I mean, a substantial fine would have been there. I mean,
yeah, it's a white collar crime, and I don't know if locking somebody up is.
She's
not going to hurt anybody. She's not violent. It was a scummy thing to do, but. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is with that.
I mean, it was a cheat. She's guilty as anything, but no.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you think that, like I say, jail is for people that are violent and hurt other people. But I guess, right. I mean, I don't know. Maybe she stole money from somebody or took away a college scholarship from somebody. I don't know.
Bribery is bribery. I get that. But as far as, she wasn't bribing to get – I guess she was as a favor. But who was she really hurting? It wasn't the taxpayers. When it's a political bribe, when you're doing that to get a contract, that's one thing. But to bribe the University of Southern California, anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not a lawyer, and I do not play one, and I did not stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
Yeah, that's above my pay grade, too. But anyway, so moving on to, I guess we could start with what we're playing here. Boy, Ron, I've been playing a bunch of things. I
start with your World Series because that was
my
cool.
Gosh, yeah, I'm going to do a video recap on my YouTube channel for that. So I pulled out the Strat Baseball because I said, damn it, I got all these cards here, and I'm always looking to buy new seasons and new teams. I said, I'm going to play with what I got. So I sat down the last couple weeks. It says, I get 1980 baseball season for Strat, and I'm going to play. I'm only playing basic right now, but I said, I'm going to play the 1980 World Series, which was the Phillies and the Royals. And this is when I grew up watching baseball. I was in junior high, so I was big on this stuff. I had all the baseball cards and still do. Yep. So I set up the 7-game series. Holy cow, what a series that was, just playing in the basic mode. I'm pretty sure I played it pretty close to how it's supposed to be played. I'm still learning baseball a little bit, but holy cow, Royals took game 1, Phillies then took 3 in a row, so we go to game 5, which is in Kansas City. Philly looking to wrap it up. They couldn't wrap it up. Kansas City wins. We go back to Philadelphia 3-2. Phillies got 2 games at home to win it, and they couldn't. Kansas City went on to win the final 3 games, come back from 3-1. And twice in the series, the Phillies had last ups with the tying run on base, and in some cases the go-ahead run on base, and they could not cash in to tie the game. And in Game 7, boy, I tell you, the tension was high in Game 7. I felt it. Oh my gosh! Because Kansas City came back, we're in Game 7, and this is it. This is the last game. Every run is crucial. In the second inning, Kansas City scratched across a run, And it just felt like that one run was going to stand up. It just had that feel. And then Kansas City tacked on a few more, and they developed a good-sized lead. And then we get back into the ninth, and the Phillies roared back. So I'm looking here at my score sheet. They roared back in the ninth. They roared back in the eighth. They got a couple of runs. They trailed. I think they loaded the bases in the ninth, down by 2. And somebody hit a line drive, and George Brett stabbed it and won the game, or won the series for the Royals. And you could see it all happen in your head. I'm playing and I'm sweating. I'm like, 4-2 in the ninth.
The great thing about doing this is that those moments you can see in your head. You can see the TV angles, as they're celebrating and then showing the slow motion replay of Brett reaching down the line to snare the liner that won the series.
But it's just the idea that it was like, it could have been 5-0 in the ninth and they get on an order, and it's like, yeah, whatever. But to put base runners on in the ninth in Game 7 at home, knowing that, a single or two would win the game, that was some tense moments. And I walked away from that. I was like, wow, that was an intense series. It took me a few nights to play, but boy, that was intense, and that was fun because it started off, like I said, Royals won 3-2, then Phillies won 2-1, and then Phillies won 3-2. I said it was over. Phillies going to win this in 5 games, and they couldn't close the deal, and Kansas City just kept winning, and then we had an awesome Game 7. Fun time. George Brett in Game 6. I think they had 19 hits in Game 6. Yeah, they destroyed him in Game 6. And George Brett hit a home run, a double, and a triple.
But he couldn't get the single.
He walked. He walked on his 4th at bat, and then they were coming up in the top of the 9th, and he was on deck when a guy struck out with 2 outs. And so he would have had one last up to get that single. That would have been my first cycle ever playing cards and dice.
I'm not sure I've ever had one. I've been playing baseball for 40 years or 30 years.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had a cycle.
That was intense. It really was. It was good. So anyway, Strat Baseball had a lot of fun, just in basic, and it has me intrigued now to maybe start reading some of the advanced directions just to see if I don't want to get too crazy with it because I'm still kind of a simple gamer, especially when it comes to sports I really don't know all that well.
Right.
And so for me, that was fun, but I might look into a few advanced rules to see if it would.
I think if you just turn the cards over and then play the rest of it basic, I think you'd be fine just to start. I mean, the great thing about Strat, Omatic, is that you can play with any mishmash of rules that you want. It's your game.
Yeah.
And because you're not a seasoned replayer, it's really not going to make a difference whether or not you use basic for this and advanced for that. But I think if you went through it just with the different hands, the splits, I think you'd find it to be a more interesting game. But that was fun. I mean, that was
a fun one. Yep. And then I turned around and played some APBA baseball right after that. So I started the 78 because I have the 78 season cards that a friend sent to me, so I could play APBA baseball. So I was playing some of that, and Yankees destroyed Dodgers in Game 1. In that one there, and I'm still learning the APBA there because it's different how you play it. Whereas you look at obviously you roll the dice and you look at the cards, the number, and you go to the chart and look at the chart. So it's a little different than playing the Strat way there. So I started to know that 13 was a strikeout, and 1 was a home run. So I started to learn some of the things there.
Once you get more of that down, it will go faster for you.
Yeah.
For a quick play, it's a full game obviously, but the Masters have it down to 15, 20 minutes because you know what those numbers are.
Yeah, I can see.
You did the APBA Go, and we're finishing those games in 15, 20 minutes.
Right, yeah. Right?
And so that will be the case for you once you know where they are because you'll know immediately, even with runners on base, kind of what those numbers mean. Mm-hmm. And so it's a good game to picture in your head.
Yeah. I also was playing this other hockey game. One of the friends here on the channel, ID Jester, you guys know ID Jester, he just finally released to the public, it's in beta right now, his hockey game. I think it's called Matchup Hockey.
I think it is.
And he had myself and another one of the listeners of his show or his channel test driving it because he knows I'm a big hockey game. So I gave him some feedback on some things like that, and so did the other guy. And then he released it to the rest of the community. He's getting a lot of feedback there, and that game is growing and growing and growing. It's really turning into quite a production of a game. I got to say, the core basics of the game are fun. I enjoyed the basic part of the game. Honestly, it's getting a little busy for what I want out of a game. But then again, I'm a guy that plays basic Strat baseball. So
a beer and pretzel replay.
I am. I'm a guy that doesn't want to.
Not an insult at all. I mean, that's just.
I enjoy a simple game, and the core game is fun, and I'm hoping that we can come up with some kind of a basic game of that where I could roll the dice and not have to be thinking about all these extra things going on in the game. But if I wanted to, I could as well, because on the surface, this game was a lot of fun to play. I really had a lot of fun playing some of the teams that he released for this game. So I'm dying to see where it goes, and I'm kind of hoping that at least for maybe people like me who don't want to have all this extra stuff, that we can boil it down to a nice, fun, basic game at well on its core. And the other game I played, holy cow, I've been saying this for weeks, Ron. I keep taking the box out and putting it on the counter, and then I put it back. And I put it on the counter, and I put it back. And finally, last night, I took it out and set it up, Hockey Blast. I went back to Hockey Blast. And I says, I'm going to give this another go. I says, well, I had some issues with it and the whole bit. So I sat down, and for whatever reason, last night, it clicked for me.
Good.
And it didn't click in the past, and I fought it, and I don't know why, but I really fought this game when I first bought it. And I played a bunch of games, and it didn't get me excited. But I was like, well, I don't want to give up on it, but for some reason, I just can't. I don't know what it was. There was something that was just in the way of this game. And for some reason, last night I sat down and I had the 74-75 season. I played Rangers and the Blackhawks, Eddie Giacomin versus Tony Esposito, and Gene Rattel and Pitt Martin, all those guys there that I remember from the 70s. And I had a fun game between the Blackhawks and the Rangers last night, and things made sense. And I got through the game, and I got the rule book handy and the whole bit, but it was weird how it clicked, and in the past it didn't. And I had some fun with this.
We've been trying to get you to play that again for a while. In the first thing in the morning, we get a fresh set of eyes, and maybe whatever the frustrations are. And I know that there's a whole bunch of things that come across as maybe confusing, especially because we've talked about the Play.com games before. And I'm not saying this as an insult to any of the games, but to me, they come across as board games that play as sports sims as opposed to a sports sim that you play on the tabletop. And sometimes that works. Some people love it. And if you're used to playing games with numbers and then go to play with words and that
it's a very different type of game. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's better or worse. It's just different. And
it's a glorified highlight game that goes to full play at the right times. And
I just seem to, I think I was playing it correct last night, but last night it just seemed to work. You know what it is I think the first time I played it, I started rolling some oddities right off the bat. And I was like, okay, let's go off the board and take Presidents for 50. That's what it felt like. It just felt like I couldn't just have any, quote, normal rolls to get through the game and feel it. It was like everything was like a specialty thing. Maybe I'm saying it wrong, but I just fought the game so much, and I'm flipping through charts, and it's like, man, this is not fun. I'm not getting this, but when I sat down last night and I played, I got a couple of normal rolls. I see who had the puck. I found I could follow the momentum a little bit better. I don't know why, but I did. I took my shots on net. I could see if it was a save or not. I could, get my rebound shots. Everything just worked last night, and I had a lot of fun. So I think I'm going to pick up the 84-85 season today or this weekend and play some of those teams there. But I'm glad I didn't give up on that game. And I've always said I haven't given up on it.
No, I know you hadn't given up on it.
But it's just a matter of me finding the time and being the correct mind frame. And just it happened to be last night around 9:30 that I was sitting there with my decaf cup of coffee. And I was like, what am I going to play? I said, let me do this. Let me play Hockey Blast. And I set it up, and I just played it, and it seemed to go pretty well. So I'm going to play it again this weekend here. And, so I'm kind of glad I stuck with that. So that's basically what I've been doing. What's been going on your end?
I was watching ID Jester, as a matter of fact, play some pinball. And so I got the free version of Pinball 3, and I bought some tables. And so I've been doing that. That's been fun. That's kind of a thinking thing. And my reflexes are actually halfway decent, which you would think that would not be the case. Been doing some tennis and some golf, actually PC golf. And then for the baseball replay, cruising along now to the end of July. We're down to the almost a dog days of August coming in, and so is there an exciting game this week? When was the Mendoza game? I think that was last week. Anyway, so that's what I've been doing. My YouTube channel, as of today, Friday the 29th of May, hit 666 subscribers. Yeah, it's a devilish number, isn't it? Yes, sir. So
it is weird when you see that number, no matter what it is.
It was 665 this morning. I'm going, oh, the next one is there, and I don't always check. I remember to actually get some baseball games I'd done on Twitch ready to go up, and so I looked again, and it was 666. So to celebrate that number, we'll be doing a game for a hockey game for that. The New Jersey Devils will be featured. So
of course,
who else would you feature?
Right.
So that's what I got going on. But yeah, so the baseball replay's there, and we'll be working in some football starting next week because people like to watch football. So nothing really. Oh yeah, I did pick up. It's most of you will. Well, this sale will be over by the time that most of you hear this. But I picked up a whole bunch of stuff for Daring Racers, Roberto Civini's motor racing games. So NASCAR and IndyCar and Formula One, and I'm looking forward to doing some of that. I mean, I wouldn't say that's a quick play game. I mean, anytime you got 300 dice rolls for that, that's not a quick play game. But he's got a very creative way of breaking auto races down to 8 segments. And so it's not necessarily everyone's cup of tea, but there's enough meat on that bone that you can tell quite the story.
How many laps do they do?
Depends on the race, I suppose. I mean, if you were to look at Daytona, it's 200 laps, 500 miles.
So if you break that down to what? By 8, so 20, so it would be 25 lap segments, I guess it would be, if you divide it by 8. It sometimes takes that long for stuff to happen. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could go 2, 3, 4, 5 laps without a really significant change in leadership. So that's one of these marathons rather than a sprint.
Right. And so that's actually, I hadn't thought of that until you just said that. So yes, so it won't be anything I can stream live. That's just too much to watch. But, we'll figure it out. I'm thinking of figuring out that I will do at least one, I don't want to say oddball, because these games aren't oddball games at all. But one, I want to say wide world of sports type video a week, whether it's track and field or whatever, just because these games are good. And they deserve to have some love. I don't think I'd ever sit down and replay a NASCAR season. To do that for 36 different races would just
that'd be tough. Yeah, but I think that would be fun, because there's always on YouTube. There's always the same videos out there, the same games. And so
I'm guilty of it. I do a lot of it.
I am too. I have my favorites that I play in the whole bit. But when you stumble on I don't want to say a different game because it makes it sound bad, but when you stumble on a game that's not well known, that's kind of fun, not only play and stream, but to watch, because you're like, oh, wow, what is this? What is this game here? And that's how you discover games. And it's fun that when you do a video and someone asks, what is this game? Then you help them discover this game. That's half the fun.
So what I might do for the racing things, I've got a whole bunch of seasons now, is do the Dave's Classic Rewind style and just pick a race I know is great, bring on the real world qualifiers, go from that. There's a website called racingreference.com that shows you all that stuff. So that takes a lot of the work out for me. So I'm not trying to guess. Mm-hmm. And then just kind of to run it from that. I'm much more of a fan of the open wheel racing or road racing. But we'll figure it out. And so much to share. And Roberto is so nice. Roberto and Marco from your regular season basketball, both from Italy, and just, yeah. So I want to do more of that type of stuff on the channel. I'm just trying to figure out what's the right mix of things. What do people want to watch and all that. So that's what I got going on.
Nice, got a lot going on there. Yeah, I think it'd be good to do the one-off race. I don't think you need to do a whole season.
I wouldn't do a whole season.
Yeah, but if you picked a race, that would be fun to do and see how that went. I'd be willing to watch some of that too, just to see how that played out in the whole bit.
So, all right, let's get to it. We have a guest. Those of you on the Facebook group, by the way, posting about the virtues of pineapple pizza. Oh, stop. Just stop.
I had one a couple weeks ago. I got a frozen one. We heated it up. It was great. It was good.
I'm happy. Have a cookie or a slice of pepperoni.
I'm gonna have another pineapple pizza this summer.
You do that.
I am.
You do that. You know, it pops up on other people's Facebook pages now, too. All right, so today we talked about my gaming journey a few weeks ago. And so I figured that today was a good day on this hot, sticky, sultry summer afternoon to talk with Dave Gardner, who created this podcast, as he made the transition from being a console gamer to now, I'd say, a hardcore dice gamer, which I don't think he even thought of when we started this almost a year ago. So let's start with the first question. You did the NHL games on the console. You've got a whole collection of them. What piqued your curiosity about switching from something that was a console action-based game to something that was more statistically driven?
I think it was twofold, actually, Ron. I think the first thing was I like playing my video games, but you're really stuck to the seasons that they had. You're stuck to usually the current season, because when they make a video game, if it's NHL 18, it's the NHL 18 season. If it's NHL 15, it's NHL 15 season. So if I want to play Bobby Orr and Phil Esposito and Tony Esposito and Ken Dryden, I can't do that. Now, I know that they've sprinkled in some of these old people into the new games for nostalgia's sake, but realistically, I can't play any of the teams I grew up with. So the first thing is when I found some of these games, I was like, wow, I can go back and get a season of people that I know. Because I don't know. Like, when I picked up the latest NHL game on the PlayStation, I know the Bruins, and that's about it. I don't. You think I kid around about that? I don't follow the sports as close as I did in the past. The Bruins went to Game 7 last year. I didn't even watch it. I couldn't tell you anybody on the Blues.
No, I hear you. When Montreal's good, I'll watch, and they haven't been good for a long time, and so I'll watch a couple games and lose interest, and that'll be it.
So I mean, I follow at a distance because that's what I do. But so that's the first thing, is I wanted to play some old stuff. The second thing is when I started watching the YouTube channels, your channel and Al and a few other guys, and then when I would go to watch your football games or your baseball games, you guys would play some cards and dice. And we got talking about that, and I was like, well, what is the whole deal between playing like a board game with this? I mean, I just don't see that. And then I started watching some people doing it, and then I picked up that shootout hockey. And I was like, wow, that was
one season that I had, which I think is the 80s, best teams, not best teams, but best franchise players of the 80s.
Yeah, so I ended up playing that, and I was like, I just fell in love with the idea of it. It was fun. It was easy. And just, I ended up buying a bunch of seasons and just putting the team cards and seeing the names, Orr, Esposito, Hodge, Sanderson for the Bruins. I mean, that was just great, going up against, some of the old California Seals teams. You can't play California Seals in any of these newer video games. So I was like, man, I could play a Seals Bruins game. How cool. How fun is that? And so that's where it went. So I watched you guys play the cards and dice. It got me interested. How fun can this be, throwing dice? Because it's something I had never done. I had played the boards games, Yahtzee and, Chutes and Ladders, and, as a kid, and Life and Monopoly. We played all those games, and but I never played any really sports games. Maybe a couple of oddball games as a kid that were like a generic sports thing. But so I started to play shootout hockey, and it's like, wow, this is really fun. And then I picked up the Strat Hockey off of eBay, and just had two teams, and I come up and I saw you about a year ago, and we sat down and played it, and I still didn't quite grasp it, but I was like getting a little closer. Then finally one night,
you enjoyed it, though. You did enjoy that.
It was fun, but I still was kind of lost because I didn't get the whole cards and dice thing still. And then I finally sat down a couple months later and I played it out, and was like, oh my gosh, wow, this is unbelievable. So I ended up buying the new game and a bunch of seasons, and I've collected seasons, and it's been fun. So for me, it started with wanting to play the teams and the players that are important to me in my past, and then watching people on YouTube actually play some of these games. And I think the transition came from probably Franchise Hockey Manager, because I was playing Franchise Hockey Manager because that's the only game that you could go back and play in the past.
It's have an historical element to it.
So I was going back and playing a lot of the 70 season, and I even had some fun drafting. I would set up like a fantasy draft where you clear all the teams and you just draft. Holy cow, I would spend all night just drafting teams because that was so fun. It's like, oh, who am I going to take here? Who am I going to take here? Do I take a goalie? I think I ended up with like Fuhrer and Peters as my goalie one time. That was awesome, putting together your teams like that. And so I went from the Franchise Hockey Manager, which I played for many years, and then finally I come over to the Cards and Dice version, which I'm enjoying.
You started with the quick play games, Mike Seelock's football. You did some of that with Tampa Bay. You're obviously a fan of teams that are started off hard down on their luck. The California Golden Seals, the 76 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, even the 1899 Cleveland Spiders, which may be the worst team of all time in any sport. Walk us through what got you in the quick play games, what you liked about them, and that, because you actually did your first full season replay project was what, 70-71 using Final Score hockey, right?
Yeah, Downey's Final Score hockey. I picked up that, and I ended up rolling every single game, including the playoffs, for that season there. And the thing is, if you go back to 70-71, I think they had just added Buffalo and Vancouver, so I think we were only up to 14 teams at the point. So,
right.
So the total amount of games was a heck of a lot less than now if you have the 30 teams or 31 teams or whatever it is. So it was a very doable project. I think it took me a day or two to set up all the score sheets, and I think I set up all the score sheets and set up all the matchups, and then I spent a few days rolling the games and inputting the stats. But I did the whole season. And what drew me to the quick play games was the ease of play and the instant gratification. And I think we've
instant gratification, especially when you're learning these games.
Yeah, so the idea is that I started off with playoff series. As I would say, okay, I'm going to start off playing the Stanley Cup, and I would roll for this team and that team, and just with a couple of rolls you get the final score, and you could play the entire series in a few minutes, and it was easy and it was fun. And so I found a ton of quick play games to play, football and hockey. The game-winning drive was really fun. I really enjoyed some of those there from the Downey games. And in fact, that killed the power play game, the Roberto Schiavini game. I had bought that from him almost a year ago. And someone brought that up on, I don't know if it was our forum or the Delphi forums. It's like, I think I bought that game and never played it. And I went back into my emails and I found I had bought the game. Yeah. And so I printed it and I played it. It's like, why did I never play this game? And so I played it and love it. Now, we have a great relationship with Roberto Schiavini, and,
yep.
I played a lot of his games and done videos for him and the whole bit, and as have you. But, yeah, so that killed the power play. It's like, wow, that was one of these games, why didn't I play that back in the day? Now I love that game. So the draw to the quick play games was just, like I said, the instant gratification. You could play a bunch of games in a short period of time, and the games are really fast. So that was a nice gateway to Cards and Dice. The quick play games really were a nice gateway.
And so we talked about that you played Strat. What was your original reluctance to go to something that was more of a full play game?
Yeah, I was very intimidated. Just looking at the cards and seeing all the numbers on the cards, and even though it's in a grid and it's all laid out nice, it was just very intimidating. It's almost like if someone that's not in the music business, right, if they look at a mixing board, okay, yes, and you see all the knobs on a mixing board, and you're just like, oh, forget it, right? Well, if you keep in mind that mixing board is broke down into 16 columns or 32 columns of exactly the same dials. So you could eliminate 31 of those channels and just keep the one. And if you learn that one channel, you learn them all. So it's intimidating to look at a mixing board, but when you really say, oh, they're all the same dials, just on a different channel, it's not as daunting. And my thing was with the Strat, I would look at that box every day. It's like, man, do I really want to try to learn it? This is going to be really difficult. And when I finally started playing it and I got the hang of it, it's like, this is not as tough as I thought it was going to be. It really does a nice job spelling it out.
So what was your breakthrough? Because you would try to think something else too. What was the breakthrough? What made it work? What made a full play game work for you?
Boy, I'm trying to remember what it even was. It was probably a game of Basic Strat, and I says, this is. I got the flow with it, and I watched some videos on it, and I got Basic to work, and I was like, I think this will work, and when I ordered the game, they ship it to you, but they sent me all the teams that you could print out. So the 6 printed teams were in the box coming to my house, right. And I printed out. I think it was Quebec Hartford. I printed out. And I played a game here with Quebec Hartford with the game because I bought, I bought an older one on eBay. So I had the cards and the dice and the directions, but I had the new one on the way. So I took the new cards from the email, printed them out, and I used the old setup that I had just for that night, just waiting for the other teams to come in and the new game to come in. And holy cow, what a game I had! The goalies were making saves. I think it was Sakic got stopped on a breakaway late in the game, and Guy Lafleur, who was playing for the Nordiques at the time, he got stuffed on a rebound at the. I mean, he had a 1-16 to score, and I think I rolled an 18 or something like that. It was a crazy number that he should have buried the shot and tied the game, and he didn't. And I walked away from that going, "Wow, and that was Basic hockey. It's like, what a game that was." And I kept the stats on a little notepad. I still have that somewhere. I was like, that was my first ever full game, and it was just so much fun following the play, and then having that breakaway at the end that was stopped, and then Guy Lafleur, of all people on Quebec, to get that rebound with one card left, and he had
still scored too at that point in his career, wasn't?
Yep, and he had a really good chance to score, and I missed it by rolling the dice, and I just kind of laughed. I was like, wow, that was a fun finish, and Hartford hung on. So that was it. Just I played the game. I sat down and said, I'm going to play this. It's and I played it with a couple of scrub teams, and it just was so much fun. And the idea of just again having the Guy Lafleur card in my hand, having the Joe Sakic card in my hand, was those are the guys that I knew when I got playing. That was really fun. And then seeing the cards too, seeing what their chances were to score on a certain play. It's always fun to look at the cards too and see what their chances are.
And from there, you kind of blossomed. You now have all the Strat games, except for college football, but you're not really a college football fan. You've got you have 3 of the APBA sports.
Yeah, I got baseball, football, and hockey. Yep, I do.
And you have all 5 of the Action PC sports.
Yep.
So when you're sitting there going, what am I going to play? What is it that you think of that, you're looking to have? Because you do a lot of one-offs. You are the Dave's Classic Rewind. That's what you do on YouTube. When you're thinking, I'm going to pull this out and play it, what's running through your mind on any particular point?
I think it's like everybody else. It's like you see something that plants a seed in your head, and you're like, wow, I want to, the NHL had a classic overtime game. It was Calgary Flames, Vancouver Canucks, double overtime game from 94. So I was like, I have the 94 season of shootout hockey. I want to go play that game 7. Or you see on TV, something that goes on TV. And you're like, man, I want to go play that game. I think I did a 77 game at one-off Pittsburgh and Dallas Cowboys. Holy cow, yes. What a game that was. And I streamed that one on my channel. And that was it just was like, I want to play a 70s football game, and I want to take 2 good teams and do it. And it just, different things pop in your head like we all do. But what I've learned, I've only been doing it for a little over a year now, but what I've learned is don't take on a huge project, because it's just, you feel bound to it, and you feel like it brings you down. So that's why I like to do the one-offs or the playoff series. Like I did the Strat Baseball World Series. I don't think I'd ever sit down and do a full season even for one team in Strat, even in basic mode. I just don't see myself doing that in any sport. But to do a playoffs, absolutely. To do just a one-off game, absolutely. And that's what I enjoy doing. Now, for the Action PC and the Strat PC stuff where they keep the stats for you and you can simulate games, I have seasons going in those PC games because I don't have to play every game. And that's what it's great for. Is I can pick and like you do. I can pick and choose a game to play,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
I can just pick one team and play it all the way through. And then sometimes I get a little tired of it, and I skip ahead, and then I can get through the season that way. So if I want to go season route, I like to do the PC games because they handle everything for you. It really is, unless I'm doing a quick play game.
Okay. Action PC. I know you started. That's what Al and I did a lot of streaming of when you started to watch. In fact, Al still does a lot, and that's primarily what I stream is Action PC. You've kind of had, I don't want to say a love-hate affair, but the conversations we had a year and a half ago are very different from what we have now. What got you to appreciate that? What do you now understand more? Walk me through that process of going, I'm really not sure about these. They seem kind of simple to the good example being the Dallas-Pittsburgh game when Pittsburgh had to chip in the fourth field goal to win and you were beside yourself and how, happy you were. Walk through that.
I just find that, I play these games sometimes in a very generic sense. You and Al, you change the pitchers, you bring in the running backs, and I don't do any of that. And so even at the beginning of the show when we talked about that hockey game, how I prefer a simpler game than a deeper game, I just let it run. I really don't get into much manipulation. I don't really get into stealing bases. In hockey, I might go manual game lines, so I can control the players on the ice if I want to do that. But for me, I like a very relaxed, just a generic basic experience because I'm there to enjoy the game and enjoy the player names and seeing the box scores of the people I grew up with. That's what I'm there for. I really don't need to have statistical accuracy. I don't want, Don Marquardt having a 200-point season for the Bruins. Don't want that. I don't want, Tony Esposito to go 82-0. I don't want that either. But I play these games and just enjoy them for what they are, and I try not to read too much into that. And so the action PC games, like I say, I've had my frustrations with the golf because maybe that's supposed to be realistic, and it can be frustrating when we're used to playing fun golf games. I will say that the football, takes a little getting used to. And one product that I started that it's a one-off, but it's kind of a bigger project is the Blowout Bowl.
Yes, that was fun.
So I'm taking great teams and playing bad teams. And I've had some people comment like, this is not a fair game. It's like, that's the idea behind the Blowout Bowl.
Right.
And what it's doing with me is, so I played the undefeated Patriots from 07 and played the winless Buccaneers from 76. That was my first Blowout Bowl game. The Patriots stomped all over them. Randy Moss had 6 touchdown catches for touchdowns, passes for touchdowns. That was helping me learn the game, because I was basically beating up on an inferior opponent, and it helped me learn how to play offense and run the offense and play some defense, knowing that I'm not going to lose, but it helped me learn the game. So, at some point I can play an even game and then try to win. But I find I don't win many of those games if I play it straight up. So for me, the Blowout Bowl was a chance for me to learn to play the game against a very bad team. And it is. It's really helping me learn how to play the formations and do this and do that. And so I can play it on a basic mode, and now I can learn a little bit more.
All right. And so along the way, because as we said at the beginning, you went from never having seen a card and dice game before to now you've got all the classics. You've got all the classics. What hasn't worked for you?
What hasn't worked for me? There's a couple of games, and I won't mention them because again, we're talking personal preference. Okay,
right.
So for me, when a game gets really, my number one thing is flow. Okay, because one of my part-time jobs is play-by-play. I do football play-by-play and hockey play-by-play, mostly hockey, but I do some football. So for me, this is a chance for me to do play-by-play. And when a game requires too much starting and stopping and too much looking up and too much math and too much gathering of facts, I can't get the game to flow, and I can't do the play-by-play in my head. So what doesn't work for me, and there's a couple of games that I picked up in just a season or two, and I've tried to play them, and I've either read the rules and just said, forget it, or I've sat down with a game and it's like I understand what's going on, but this is more of a math equation than it is a game. And there was a basketball game that did that, and there was a hockey game that did that, and there was, I don't know if I had a baseball game that did that or a football game, but I mean, if I got to sit down and add up all the players on the court and then come up with a number or something to that effect, just subtract this from that changes this. Now, that's when they lose me. And I lose the flow because now I'm doing so much thinking about how to play the game that I'm not enjoying the game. Or if I can just read the card or read a chart and it's like single, double, or shot on net, or miss, or 5-yard catch, whatever it is, that's what I want to see. I don't want to have to sit and do all kinds of crazy math. So what doesn't work for me is when I have to do a ton of math and a ton of figuring out. And if the card is really busy with numbers and symbols all over the place and it looks like Japanese instructions, that becomes intimidating, and that turns me off as well too. So again, I might be in the minority. I'm a simple gamer and I like simple stuff.
I don't think that's the minority thing. I think we all kind of get attached to the first version of a sports game that we learn, which is probably a topic of another show, and that's how you get into these great fights of taste great versus less filling.
Right.
But yes, if you're introduced to version A of a hockey game, that's the one you're going to. In your case, it was Strat. That's the one you're going to compare every other game against because that's your introduction to the language.
Yeah.
And then everything else is different. They're all doing the same things. It's the proverbial. There are lots of ways to make a pizza, and pineapple is not good. But you know what I'm saying, and so. But you're right. I mean, you're more of a.
Some people want the statistical accuracy, and they'll swear by a certain baseball game or hockey game or a football game, whatever, and they say, boy, I play this game and my stats come out and they're super accurate compared to real life. And I'm just looking at that saying, that's great, but I says, to get from point A to point B, to get those stats to be accurate, for me, that journey is not a lot of fun. I would rather have something that is not quite as statistically accurate, but I just played a game in my head, and I had so much fun. And I walk away from that, and I want to tell people about the game I just played. And I would rather say, you wouldn't believe it, Ron. Game 7, Phillies had the bases loaded, and Schmidt smacked it down the third, and Brett made the grab and ended the series, and the Royals won the series. To me, that's more memorable than saying, guess what, Ron? George Brett hit .355 in that series. And in real life, he hit .356.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. Yep. No, I get it. All right. 2 more questions for you, then we'll go. You've tried more sports than I ever thought that you would. You've actually gone out and done some hardcore basketball stuff. I know some of that is because of your work with regular season basketball and what you've done for them. And baseball, which you're not really a baseball fan, and now you've done a World Series, and you've done some Stratomatic basic baseball and some APA basic baseball. What drew you to try these things that were outside your comfort zone and your enjoyment? Because in all the time I've known you, we've never really had a conversation about the NBA.
Yeah, I think I get kidded a lot that I've played every hockey game known to man. Because I'm the hockey guy. That's just what I grew up with. It's my favorite sport. It's my business. It's part of my life. And so I went out and I practically tried every hockey game out there. I haven't tried all of them, but if I look at my folder over here, but if we even take out the APA and the Strat and the big ones and the Hockey Blast, if you want to include them, I think I counted 20 or 25 quick play hockey games in my folder that I could pull out and play at any time. And I think at one point I was like, man, I played a ton of hockey, and I like certain games, and some games I prefer to play over others and whatever. But every now and then you want to do something a little different, and you sitting home here during the quarantine or whatever, I started watching some old baseball games, started watching some old basketball games, and the other day the 1980 World Series was on TV. And it's like, these are guys I know. And it's like, holy cow, I have the 1980 Strat season. I'm going to play at the damn World Series. And I did, and it was unbelievable. And then the basketball, one of the listeners of the shows, he goes, I'll send it to you. I get basketball in a season. I'll send it to you. He sent it to me. And I've been having a blast with it. I have an absolute blast with the basketball. And, I can go back and play some old Larry Bird games. And I can play, the old Lakers. I got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with the skyhook. And because I like the Strat procedure because it flows, and that's just my personal preference. I like a game that flows, that I can kind of follow along and do the play-by-play. I can just flip a card. Okay, now I roll the dice. Shot's good, no good. What is it? And Kareem with the skyhook, it's good. Now Bird brings it up for the Celtics. So I went back and I'm playing these older seasons, although it's tougher to find the cards for the older season, that's for sure.
Yes.
But for me to go back and do that, and even with the I did some Roberto Schiavini basketball games too, and I played a couple of series with those, and those were fun. And I did a couple of videos for his basketball game and the Kill the Power Play we talked about. I did the WHA. He had a season for WHA that I did, and then I did a worst of and a best of tournament using that, and it was just really fun to go back and play the hockey. But yeah, I played so much hockey that I think I wanted to get on to something different. And the basketball games is fun. And when I stumbled on the regular season basketball, that reminded me so much of the shootout hockey game that I liked, because it was simple, but you could get a ton of detail out of that. You can squeeze a lot out of that lemon, so to speak, to get all the juice out with all the stats. And shootout hockey is the same way. You can play a light version of that and just get a final score, or you can really get in there and find out who did what and all this other stuff. And regular season basketball does that. Is it scratches that itch where I can play a quick game, I can play a series out, and just for final score, or I can pick up stats. And so I just kind of I'd done the hockey thing, and you just need a break. You know what I mean? You can only eat so much pineapple pizza, and then you get a pepperoni one. So that's what it was. Is that obviously I'm a hardcore hockey guy, but for me, the Bird era, the McHale era of basketball, the Celtics Lakers rivalries were great. And then the old baseball game, I think back to all the baseball cards. Every time I played that World Series, I thought about the baseball card of the guy that I got in 1980. So that's why I went on to play basketball and baseball a lot, and even my Cleveland Spiders, which were kind of fun until I had the technical difficulties, and that's a whole nother story why that project fizzled out. That was more frustration with the computer than it was anything else. But so I started to play some other things, and it was just kind of fun. It was a fun getting away from hockey, which I always do, and I still will always do. But it was a fun departure to go and play some of that on the table.
All right, last question, because you came into this just really unsure about whether or not you'd enjoy it. And so you are not alone in that. There's lots of people who enjoy the 70s, 80s, 90s, and aughts era of professional sports and miss it, that they can't go back and play it on their PlayStation or whatever. What would you tell someone who's on the fence and looking at, why are these games exciting? Sell those, take a minute and sell those games to someone who may not know them.
I think you got to almost be ready to learn something new, because I remember I had my uncle over the house and I tried to play Strat hockey with him, and he didn't want any part of it. And he played the game with me, and we got through the game, and he walked away, and I could see in his face that he was just like eyes glazed over. Don't ever make me do that again. And he's someone that's older than me, so I would think that he would enjoy playing the old season. It wasn't his cup of tea. And not that he's a video gamer by any means, but that just wasn't his thing. So I know that, okay, it wasn't your thing. But I had another friend of mine who's late 20s, early 30s, and he was the guy that was laid up with the broken leg. And I bought shootout hockey for him, and I went over his house and brought some dice, and I set them all up because he couldn't move. I set them all up at the kitchen table, and he started rolling the Rangers 94 season. He's a Rangers guy. He started rolling the season there, while he was healing up, and he was like, wow, this is unbelievable. And he was posting some of the results on Digital Dice, back when he was playing that. But he couldn't believe how much fun a game like this was. But the other thing is it was shootout's a lot simpler than Strat too.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
So I could show him what would happen, and we could get through a game and get through a progression of it fairly easy. So that maybe that would be a good gateway, because that's what it was for me. Shootout was a gateway for me. And so here's someone that immediately loved this game and was playing it and was all excited and was texting me scores of the game, and he was playing his favorite people. His 94 Rangers was his favorite team. And so he was playing those. So I think to try to sell it to somebody, they almost have to be ready for it, and they have to be open-minded. And you really got to take the time with them and show it's how it's done. You know, like I said, you sat down with Strap with me that day, and that kind of pushed me to go and learn on my own. I still was I still was confused on some of the things on the cards and stuff, but I ended up getting over that and whatever. But yeah, I don't think it's for everybody. I really don't. You know, some people look at that, oh, jeepers, you know, whatever. Because I think it gets a bad stigma. I really do. And I had it. It was a bad stigma for me for years. I look at that. It's like, oh, do I really want to sit down and play a statistical game? But it's kind of not. It's really, it's not. I think it gets a bad rap for people on the outside that don't know what it is. But once you sit down and the thing about the cards and dice, it is so personal. It is not. Absolutely. It is not sitting back with a bag of nachos, with your feet up in the air and a controller in your hands playing Madden. Cards and dice, you're on a table, you got the cards, you touch the cards, you look at the cards, you physically have the dice in your hand, you physically have the card in your hand. You either flip the card, roll the dice, and then you got to look to see what happened. And then maybe you have the pegs to move the guys around the bases, or the puck to move the puck on the thing to see if it's going to be a save. And the excitement is watching that dice come down and then looking at the card or the chart to see what the heck happened on that play. And that's the fun with that. It is very...
needing a 1 to 18 to put away the game and rolling a 20.
Yeah, and sometimes you do that. Sometimes, like, okay, here it is. It's a shot on net, and 1 to 15 I score. So, and that comes down out of the tube, and if it's an 18, you miss the shot, you're just like, wow. Or if you score the shot, it's like, yay. And it's just really, it's a very it's very personal because it's right there with you. You feel a part of it. Sometimes I dress up my table. Sometimes I put up the baseball helmets or the football helmets, or some people put the cards of the actual baseball cards on the table and play. I have a little setup. I don't just play some people are fine with the cards in a notebook and they enjoy it. Me, I like a visual experience. I like to set up the baseball field. I like to have my dice tower. I like to have, things set up. So I feel more immersed when I do it that way, and I feel like it's a big production for me to be part of that. So, for me, yeah, immersion is very personal, and it's just it's hard to describe unless you do it. It really is. It's to some people, like I say, knitting is very. Yeah. You look at someone that's knitting, it's like, oh, what's that? And all of a sudden they come up with this unbelievable sweater, and you're like, wow, that was pretty good. And you had fun doing it? Yeah, I did, So it's like anything else. Gardening. If you got a specific thing that you really enjoy, not everyone's going to like it. And but sometimes if you show somebody and you take their hand, hey, let's do this, maybe they will like it.
All right. So that's Dave's gaming journey to present day. And so, if there's anything else you'd like to ask us about our own gaming journeys, my interview was a few weeks ago and Dave's is today, put it in the comments, on there. All right, so that takes care of episode 42, the Jackie Robinson episode. How could we do 42 and not think of Jackie Robinson?
Oh, yeah. This is right, yeah. I don't know. Well, it's baseball. You're the baseball guy, so I'm putting this on you.
You should have known with that one.
I don't follow baseball anymore. What teams he play for now?
The Brooklyn Dodgers.
Oh, man, I love the Brooklyn Dodgers. Yeah.
They played in Brooklyn, How do you get a hold of us, Dave?
All right, let's fade this out here. Here we go. All right, ways to get a hold of us here. DigitalToDice.com is our website. That's where we park all of our podcasts over on Spreaker. You can find us all on iTunes and iHeartRadio and wherever your favorite podcasts are located. Our text line, 978-751-DICE, 978-751-3423. Send us a text. Say hi. We might read it on the show. And or on Facebook, facebook.com/group/DigitalToDice. Join us over there. Post your projects. Ask your questions. Have some fun. Ron?
All right. Great. So thank you very much. You've been a good sport this week.
I tried. It's always tough, getting interviewed on your own show, but I don't know.
Oh,
it's still fun talking about the journey and with the cards and dice. So
And so that's what the show's all about. So thank you very much. And for Dave, I'm Ron. We'll talk to you next time here on Digital Dice.
Bye-bye. I got you on that one.